Hey everybody, Matt Geary here for the Geek Pride cast on this Monday evening. With me tonight, as always, we have my co-hosts, Peter Ray Allison.
Good evening, everyone.
And Jon Jo Cosgrove.
Hello, people.
And our special guest this evening, we have Teika Marija Smits.
Hi, everybody.
So, Teika, who are you? What do you do? What's your thing?
So I'm a writer of speculative fiction. I do also write some poetry, sneakily sometimes. And I'm also a freelance editor of mainly speculative fiction and non-fiction. And I suppose they're my latest. I call them my latest, but it feels like a long time ago. But my debut collections were Umbilical, published by Newcomer in 2023, and Waterloo, published by Black Shark Books in 2023. So those are my two books. I do write other things, longer prose. People do ask me, do you write novels? And I say, yes, they're just in a drawer at the moment. So I do write longer prose, and I'm a freelance editor. And I recently, in 2024, I was very busy because I edited a book called The Utopia of Us, which celebrates 100 years of Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, which people might know was a huge influence on George Orwell. It really, if you were to read We first and then read 1984, you'll see there's a huge amount of similarities. And some people get very cross about that. They say George Orwell ripped off Zamyatin, and other people say, no, you can see the influences there, but it's not exactly the same. It's very much Orwell's own work. And I can see everyone's point of view, basically. So I'm going to be very diplomatic about it, but you can see the influence between Zamyatin's We and George Orwell's 1984. So sometimes people call We the grandfather of all dystopian fiction because it was so highly influential. So that's what I did this year. So I was quite busy with that.
And you had the
and you were also the British Fantasy Society Best Newcomer.
Yes. Actually, I've got the books here, so I'll lift up the books so I can give them due credit. So Umbilical and Waterloo, I won Best Newcomer for those two books, which I was just blown away. If anyone was at the awards ceremony and they saw me, I just looked so shocked because I was 99.9% certain that I wouldn't win it, because, as I was saying to my husband, it's so difficult. How do you judge or gauge a short story collection, and particularly two short story collections which are quite different, against these huge expansive worlds that you can get in novels? And so we were saying, oh, it's impossible, and short story collections, everyone knows they don't sell, so I'm sure it's just great to be shortlisted. So when my name came up, I just didn't really know what to do. I might be a mistake. It's just, my brain's very slow, so trying to wrap my head around that when people were looking at me, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And thankfully I had a copy of Umbilical with me, so I just picked it up and just thought, I've got some acknowledgements in the back, I'll read those out, because I always come back to the printed word. That always saves me, because I feel like when I'm speaking, I can't always say exactly what I want to say because my brain's slow. But when it's written down, I know that I've considered those words carefully. So I just read out the acknowledgements, and I thought that'll have to do.
So was that at Edgelit when you had that? Was this during Edgelit?
That was at the recent Fantasy Con.
Yes, yes, of course, yes.
About 10 days ago.
Yeah, 10 days ago, I think. Yeah, because we were on a panel together about dark fairy tales at Agelit.
Yes.
Which is where we first met. I mean, when you at FantasyCon, were you ever kind of in the lead up to it, when you were nominated? Were you thinking, what happens if I do get the Windy Award? Should I kind of practice a speech, or kind of start thinking of a speech in the back of your mind? Like, I could say this in my speech. Oh, how proud I am to win this. Or was it just, no?
I couldn't envisage it happening.
Right.
it's just such a bizarre thing, really. And part of me thought, some people said, oh, you should probably prepare something just in case. But I was just so busy in the run up to it. And I thought, oh, it's one more thing to do. And it's so unlikely that it's going to happen that I'll just wing it. It will be fine. It will be fine. But I have learnt at these events to always carry my books around with you, because that's like an old publisher thing, because I used to run a small press, and that's what I learnt quite early on. If you run a small press, or if you are an author published by a small press, I would always encourage my authors, take your books around with you everywhere you go. You never know, somebody might be interested in them, so you can go, oh, here you go. So always keep a book in your handbag so you can take it out. So I had that with me. So that was, I suppose, some kind of quick thinking there. So
the two books you have, what's the sort of general? Obviously, the short stories. So what's the general premise between both of them?
Yeah, so that's the tricky thing about short stories. It's so difficult to describe them or to give an overall sense of what the collection's like, because from the cover, you could probably see it's quite dark, umbilical. And I would say it is dark. Some of the stories are really quite dark, but I'd always like to say that there's some hope within them. So I suppose I would classify them as being mainly about motherhood, but also mythology, and also science, but also spirituality. And there's a lot of fairy tale, and there's a lot of characters from folklore, like the Green Man. There's Baba Yaga as well. There's Bluebeard. So there are these characters that keep recurring in my stories that I'm absolutely fascinated with, and they keep popping up. But always I try and look from things from the perspective of ordinary everyday people going about their lives, and my stories are quite grounded in everyday life, because to me, I know it's not interesting to everybody, but to me the domestic is quite interesting. So sometimes I've seen criticisms of short stories saying, oh, they're very domestic, they're just set in the kitchen or the house, and there's a lot of detail about these people's lives, they're doing washing up, they're doing laundry. But that's actually my life. So I think to myself, well, yes, it can be mundane and repetitive, but within that, there is its own kind of magic, I'd like to think. So I kind of I have these stories that are set in these quite quiet environments. And yet I look to the magic within them and try and draw that out and make it quite exciting.
So like the mythic and the mundane.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I can see why some people don't like that. Some people like in their short stories or their novels to be transported somewhere incredible, somewhere new and amazing. And I do really like that as well. But I suppose one of my favourite genres is magic realism. So it's a normal setting. It's just it's an everyday setting, and yet something incredible happens in that. And that's, I suppose, my favorite kind of fiction, I think. And so I suppose I'm just writing what I like, really.
You say about the obviously like the mundane and like bit of like mystical side. One of my favorite authors is a Japanese writer called Murakami, and he does a lot of stories like that. They're very grounded, they're very like, you know, they're like traditional day-to-day things, but in some of them he throws in a bit of like a mythical element, throws in a bit of fantasy, but they're like second or third to the main story. So when your stories have got a bit of like mythical element to them, are you drawing on that mythical as like the focus point, or are you thinking that's sort of like, you know, comes in like later towards after you've already come up with the story?
That's a really good question. I'm not quite sure how it happens, because sometimes I think I often want to explore a situation. For instance, in one of my stories, I do have an AI that works in a cafeteria that actually helps the owner do her accounting and her stock and her stock taking and things like that. And actually the AI is quite a sweet AI. So this is maybe a bit different to what we're kind of used to at the moment. We're all thinking, oh, we hate AI.
Yeah.
This feels like anti-Black Mirror. It's like, yeah, AI is doing good.
Yes. so it's quite sweet. So it's supposed to be. My idea was that this AI was in the cafe, and it's listening to the people around it, and so it's picking up on human conversation. So it was trying to learn from the humans it was listening to. And one of the customers who comes in often is a writer, and as writers we must be empathetic to our characters. We must understand how other people feel and think so that we can write them well. And so this AI was listening to her muttering about her writing her short stories and how empathetic she was, looking at the mother and baby in the cafe, looking at the single young man and saying, oh, what are their lives like, and trying to imagine what their challenges and hopes and joys were. And so this AI is picking up on all of that and is thinking, this is quite interesting. This is how humans think and feel. So actually it was becoming quite empathetic. So for me, and there's this bit with the AI. So I do actually like this story where it comes from, the background of the story is that the AI servers get covered with slime, like so a little bit from the chip fat and things like that in the cafe. But also what's happening is that it's growing and becoming more sentient as the organic matter is melding with the inorganic matter. So the metallic circuits and the organic matter from the fats and the carbohydrates, etc. Where that idea came from was me cleaning the shower, and in the shower, in the I suppose is it the plug hole?
Yeah.
You pour, it's not one of the nicest jobs, but I was there and cleaning it and taking out all the hair and the gunk, and it just had this horrible slime to it. And I thought to myself, oh my God, that's disgusting. And yet it's a job that I end up doing frequently. And I thought to myself, this is a boring, dirty job, which no one really wants to do, and yet it's got to be done. And yet what would happen if I then set that in a cafe, and this slime actually happened to be kind of quite mysterious, but helped with the evolution of something that was an android or an AI. So it was weird the way what I do is, I suppose, things that interest me and things that I do. So the AI is of interest to me. Can it be helpful, or is it going to be a hindrance to us? Coupled with my cleaning came together. And so these kind of random things come together, and then I do ask myself the question, well, why is this of interest, and how can we go further with it? And then because I was thinking about a cafe and stock taking, I thought this would be more of a science fiction story, because it would actually have to be set in, you'd have to use computers. And of course, when you talk about computers, you're talking more science fiction than fantasy. So sometimes quite early on, it comes to me whether it's going to be science fiction or fantasy. And sometimes it comes a little bit later in the story. But that story came from cleaning the shower and AI in a cafe. So.
And it makes sense. I mean, one thing I've noticed is you call your writing speculative fiction. Rather than science, but you also refer to science fiction and at times fantasy. What's the difference between all those three terms?
Oh gosh, that's really tricky.
Thank you.
We're hitting the hard questions here, ladies and gents.
Yes, definitely. I think science fiction, Adam Roberts always talks about science fiction having a novum in it. So it's got something new technologically. And we see that either a new technological device, or it's tricky because dystopian fiction is a new way of government, I suppose. So it's something to do with our lives in which there is something new, a shift that tends to be based in science or social science or the physical world or something like that. So it's all about the novum, the new thing. And I suppose fantasy, we are talking the supernatural here, aren't we? So we're talking about folklore and fairy tales where there doesn't need to be any explanation. It is just magic, and we've got a sense. I suppose we've got a sense of the uncanny, or magic as just being that wonderful thing that just happens by us wishing it. And then horror is really difficult to define, but some of those stories were originally published in horror anthologies or horror magazines. And again, I suppose it has some sort of element of darkness, but that might be from within. So it might be a psychological type of darkness, or it could be from without. So the type of some darkness where there is the monster is on the outside, but sometimes in horror, the monster is on the inside. So that's really interesting. And I think science fiction and fantasy can have elements of horror or have a horror mood to them, but people would still classify them as science fiction, like Aliens, really. I mean, Aliens is a horror, or is it a science fiction?
Yeah, like Event Horizon, which is possibly one of the scariest films I've ever seen, and it's sci-fi. Isn't
Matt, we all know that's Watership Down. That's the scariest film ever.
Oh man, Watership Down's traumatizing.
but also, where does speculative fiction fit in this? That term, speculative fiction.
I think speculative fiction is a lovely umbrella in which we can put everything that we love.
Non-mainstream fiction, basically.
Yes. But I think that's expanding to crime and thrillers as well, isn't it? When they have some twist to them that's a little bit out of the ordinary, and I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, I think especially the thrillers are becoming much more open to crossovers with science fiction and there's always been a horror element to thrillers, because I mean, when you, especially like there's some of the more grislier crimes, then it's pretty horrific.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see it opening up, to see I think there's a lot of crossover at the moment. I think there are also a lot of literary fiction writers that are coming to speculative fiction, or like I said, writing maybe more in that overlap of science fiction, horror and fantasy. So
I mean that Wilbur Smith collaborated with Mark Shadbourne to write some historical fantasy alternative history novels. Really good. I mean, like Wilbur Smith is a very well known for want of a better term, conventional author. Mark Shadbourne, noted fantasy author. So it's great to see them collaborate and bringing their own strengths together.
No, apologies about that. We had a Twitch subscriber, and it just went blew up, and my face just went because it makes a loud noise, and I forgot to turn it down. So apologies.
I thought there was like a train or something going by from here. I could hear something going.
Yeah, apologies about that. Carry on. And thank you for the subscription. Appreciate it. But yeah, I forgot to turn the sound down.
Okay, and yeah, I mean, also there's been a lot of. I mean, one thing I really like is the mythicum, and in that particular genre is, when done well, is brilliant. I mean, one of the best examples I think I've seen on television, for example, is the Monty Johnsons. Don't know if anyone's seen that. No, it's basically four brothers in New Zealand that turns out to be the descendants of Norse gods. All they want to do is be down the pub with their mate having a few drinks. But because they are not the descendants of Norse gods, they have to deal with Norse mythology, like Ragnarok.
Right.
And that's stuff like that, and they've got to fulfill prophecies. And it turns out who they thought was their cousin was actually their great grandfather, who just keeps reincarnated every morning. And just random stuff like that, and it's made with a minuscule budget, so they have to rely on the writing to convince to keep the magic very low key. So basically, Loki is a lawyer, and I think the only way to do it is just watch it. It is genius. It is brilliant. But as that kind of kickstarted my whole pleasure, I find, in the mythicum game, where you kind of bring these two disparate elements together and you present something entirely new.
That's a great idea of having Loki as a lawyer. That's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah. And it was just brilliantly done. So the four brothers, I mean, one was the reincarnation of Odin. One was the god of was Bragi, the god of poetry, who could bend mortals to his will, but due to like mingling with humans, their powers have diminished.
Oh, I see.
So they got very, very. What another is the god Hod, god of all things dark and cold, but all he can do is make the room feel a bit slightly chillier. And just stuff like that, the really minuscule powers, where it's just, but they are effectively gods, and they have godly duties, or at least got sort of Norse mythological elements that can interfere in their lives when they just want to graduate university, run a job, get on with their lives, not have to deal with, we have to deal with Thor, who is barking mad. Like, no, and basically, they present Thor as being a farmer who looks after goats and likes his hammer, which is basically a normal claw hammer. That's Thor, which just happens to be barking mad. And again, it's just really well done. It just presents very human, but bringing in all the kind of Norse mythology elements to it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds also, like I said, that sounds very clever to, if you know that the budget is going to be small, the fact that their superpowers aren't as great means not so much CGI. So
Exactly.
that's really clever to play on the writing and to be able to create something within budget in a really creative way. And I just wish Hollywood was doing more of that, really, because it all just seems like remakes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of things out there where it's usually at the kind of the smaller end, the independents, where kind of they've got much low budgets. So therefore, they need to invest in the writing, and that's where the creativity is showing.
Yeah, I mean, Blumhouse Pictures, I think, is probably the best example at the moment, because they have a lot of properties that are quite low budget in comparison to a lot of films, but they do turn out some quite good pictures. I mean, just go by more recent, Megan. That was a great horror film. And, you know, I quite enjoyed the Five Nights at Freddy's film. That was quite done. That was done well. It was quite creative and made back something like 15 times its budget. So there you go.
Has anyone watched the Purge films? I think that's my Blumhouse.
Yes.
That's basically what I call political horror.
Yeah.
Where basically it's not the people, it's not the monsters, it is the place itself that is frankly terrifying.
I've got to think about it's like gore films. I'm just not really like the Saw films. Don't really do very much for me. I've not seen The Purge. I get the impression there's a lot of gore in there as well. I you know, stuff like that just makes me feel ill. Doesn't scare. I like psychological stuff. You know, I'm probably one of the few. I'm one of the few people who enjoyed the Blair Witch Project. You know, I thought like stuff like that. You know, where you don't know what's going on and it's sort of the back of your head. That's the stuff that freaks me out.
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, well, yeah, even stuff like that, you know, where it's literally just like I thought Jeepers Creepers was great until he turned into a monster. I thought it was great until he turned into that wing thing at the end. I was like, he killed it, man.
Teika, does what you can write influence what you want to watch, or is it kind of what you watch influence what you write?
I don't actually watch that much television. Sorry to say.
Okay.
I just feel like I always feel like I'm behind. I'm never watching the movies or the shows that people are watching, and we don't have Netflix. People keep saying we must go and see this on Netflix, and we don't have it. We just have DVDs.
Hey, don't knock DVDs. I was watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy on DVDs.
I was actually going to mention a DVD that I actually started watching last night because I couldn't sleep, so I thought, let's just pick something out of the film collection. And it's not a horror or anything like that, but it's one of my favourite films of all time. Oh, if I don't smack
Small Soldiers. Wow.
Small Soldiers. It's a great example of cheesiness. Great story, great art, and quite good CGI for 1998 as well. And I think was the last acting performance for Phil Hartman as well.
Oh yeah,
Rest in peace.
the drill sergeant for Full Metal Jacket.
Yep, there's a lot of people in that film.
So how come we don't watch Netflix or like subscribe to Netflix?
I don't know. I just
just not for you.
Pete, there are people that don't have Netflix. It happens.
Well, no, I'm just you. I mean, we have Netflix. We also have a mammoth DVD collection on the grounds that I don't trust Netflix to keep the films I want to watch. Like we're watching Underworld at the moment, because who doesn't love Underworld? It is basically Vampire the Masquerade, the film. So much so that the producers had to had an out of court settlement with the creators of Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh right, okay, interesting.
Yeah, slightly. Basically, the creators of Vampire the Masquerade sued the producers of Underworld and basically settled out of court, and the creators had to sign an NDA and they can't talk about it anymore.
Oh,
yeah. And I've spoken to Mark Reinhagen a few times, and he will not. No, they're not budging it. I've spoken to Justin Achille, and also.
Wait a minute. So who's not speaking about it anymore?
No one is.
No one is.
As in, none of the people and none of the producers aren't speaking about it, and neither the creators speaking about it.
the law, the law.
They can't talk about the lawsuit. They can't talk about the lawsuit.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All they said is there was the film Underworld. I can't talk about it.
There was two of them, wasn't there? There's
six now.
There's a lot of Underworld films.
Is there? Fuck, wait a minute. So there's the one, right? So there's the first one. Is the second one with the werewolves?
Rise the Lycans.
And then it's got your man Welsh actor. What's his name? He's in. Oh, great. Welsh actor. He's always with David Tennant. He's in Good Omens.
Michael Sheen.
Yeah, Michael Sheen. He's the lycanthrope, isn't he? He's the
Okay, it's Underworld Evolution, Underworld Rise of the Lycans.
Yeah.
Underworld
Rise of the Lycans was the prequel
Awakening.
one, wasn't it? Bill Nighy.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. 'Cause he's in that.
Endless War, Awakening, and Blood Wars.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure he is. Like, I'm pretty sure. I feel like.
Oh, he might be. He might be. I think I only ever watched the first and the third one. I don't remember getting through that many of them, but I knew some people that were absolute fanatics.
Yeah,
of
Michael
Underworld.
Sheen.
I mean, apart from Pete, I knew there was other people that were quite fanatics.
He plays Lucian.
Oh, okay. No, fair enough. I mean, it's been such a long time since what was Rise of the Lycans? That was 2009. So, and I watched that in the cinema. So that's probably the last of Underworld that I actually saw. So, yeah.
Okay. But yes.
I think there's a story right there. The fact that nobody's talking about it.
Basically, it was an out of court settlement.
Yep.
Basically, the agreement of the out of court settlement was they're set to sign NDA that they can't talk about it.
Yeah.
There's a story there, but no one's
So the last 4 minutes of this podcast are about to get deleted.
But yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, it's because they talk about it in the people that did not sign the NDA. For example, Tim Bradstreet, who did a lot of the art for Vampire the Masquerade, talks about it in the documentary Vampire the Masquerade, the documentary, and it's kind of he got the point where he was watching the first Blade film and was going, "Oh, that looks quite familiar. That looks familiar too." And apparently, one of the producers of the Blade film said, "Yeah, we're looking through your book, and that massively inspired us." And the
Inspired.
Going, oh,
Inspired.
Oh,
No, you never want to say that.
To the point where when the director of Blade 2, Guillermo del Toro, hired Tim Bradstreet and said, "Yes, we're going to pay you this time."
Okay.
But
Still a fantastic film.
But yeah, anyway, back to the visual point, it's like, there are films out there, I mean, that, I want to watch again. So we have got a fairly extensive DVD collection. So I just wondered if that was the same for you, Teika. I know you just want to have films that you want to watch as and when you want to watch, or if there's any other reasons.
I think it's just being. I suppose you could say we're behind with the times, but I mean, I've only had a smartphone for something like a year and a bit.
Oh,
So
wow.
It's like my old
avoid. I know. I've still got one of those basic phones that you have to do.
It's my old guitarist, man. Like I call him a Luddite because he'd rock up the practice and he had this old school Nokia like one with buttons and stuff. I was like, dude, seriously, what are you doing? There's like proper phones these days and stuff. And he's only just got himself like a smartphone, but like true to form, it's an old smartphone. It's not one of the new ones. It's just an old one. I'm like, well, okay, each to their own.
Yeah, I'm not very impressed with mine actually, so I just keep ignoring it until my daughter says, "I've sent you a message," and then I say, "Oh yeah, I forgot I've got that."
Yeah, I must admit, I cover a lot of cybersecurity in my day job, to the point where, and my children hate it because I am a paranoid cybersecurity journalist when it comes to parenting. And so basically, it's like, you go to secondary school, right? You got a basic function phone for the first few years. When you need a smartphone, then you'll get one. And to the point where I think at one point my daughter was the only one in her year that did not have a smartphone. And eventually I was like, right, okay, yeah, you do need a smartphone now for school when they're kind of doing like pass the lesson on school and need apps on their smartphone. Like, okay, fine, I'll get you a smartphone. Locked down.
Yeah. I locked down everything. My daughter's like everything she's got now is completely locked down. She's not allowed. She's got downtime. She's not allowed on her iPad after 7 o'clock. All of her games are age restricted. All of her things are age restricted. We had a moment. So basically, what happened was, she was like sitting there watching her iPad, and then she just said, "You little bitch," and I was like, "What did you say? What did you say? What did you just say?" And she just sort of looked at me and went, "Nothing." I said, "What did you just say?" And she went, I was like, "Where did you get that from?" And she went, "YouTube." And I said, "Right, YouTube's gone. It's out. Gone.
Do you know, I don't know why, but I started having flashbacks to the South Park film then, when I'm not going to repeat the full line, but when Mr. Garrison goes, "Eric, what did you say?" "Jew? No, you said you." But it's like it goes on off on that. It's like, I don't know. I just sort of had that flashback.
Yeah, so anyway. From that point onwards, it's like I've just restricted. It also stops her nightmares as well. But it's just like I just restricted everything now, and it's just like because I mean,
it's amazing though, isn't it? Technology now is like, like you say, your child can't even go to school now without having a smartphone. That's a scary world that we live in.
I was thinking about this, like when I was a kid, right? We obviously had like I think the highest tech we had as kids was a Game Gear. I had a Game Gear.
I
had a Game Gear, but like it was we didn't have that. I was sort of thinking like the long journeys. We go from Northern Ireland all the way across to Scotland and drive all the way down to my grandparents' house in Oxford, and it took in my child brain 5 days, to get down there because it was just like forever. Now as an old man, it's an amazing. Driving
Matt,
from
you're younger than me, dude.
Yeah, I know, but this feeling like now I love a good long drive because I can listen to audiobooks and stuff. But like as a child, it was the worst thing ever, and we didn't have iPads, and we had to play like I Spy, and my dad had this Top Gear tape that we listened to perpetually. I knew that was it. It was a Top Gear like soundtrack, and that's all we had music wise and stuff. And it was just like that. And it's like my daughter's like, she doesn't get to go with her iPad somewhere. Like the world ends. It's just like, oh, I need my iPad. It's like I didn't have that when I was your kids. You could deal with.
You need to install a tape player into your car now, just to really like drum it in. Go, look, this is what I had to deal with 30 years ago. Have a listen to this.
I like to keep things interesting, right? I remember this is I vividly remember this, right? We were driving, and I'm a gullible 5-6-year-old, and my sister's sitting there.
You still are.
And I was like, "Where are we going?" Because she says, "Oh yeah, we're going to see, we're going to visit Willy Wonka's chocolate factory." And I was like, "Oh, no way!" And then she's like, "Yeah, we're going to visit that." I was like, "Oh, no way, that's brilliant. We're going to see." I'm my brain, I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm going to eat at a chocolate fountain." All this stuff was going to happen, and then I have no idea why she did it. She's never explained why she did it. But halfway down the Oxford, she turned and went, "Ah, Math, I just found out Chocolate Factory burnt down. We're not going anymore. It's like, no. And I didn't question it. I didn't question the fact that, one, she knew we were going this, and two, she suddenly got this telekinetic sort of thing in her head that, you know, it had burnt down. I didn't even question it. I just accepted that it had burnt down and was gutted for the rest of the journey down. Sorry,
welcome to being 5 years old.
Yeah, it was just wrong. Sorry, goodness. A bit of a segue, but it was just sorry.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing that older siblings do, though. Definitely.
Yeah. Did you have older siblings when you were growing up?
Yes.
Were you the older sibling?
No, I was the younger sibling or the only sibling, because my half. No, it's my I have a sister. She's technically my half sister. She's 9 years older than me. So when she was being very nice to me and I liked her very much, then she was my full sister. This is my sister. And then when she was being mean to me, I was like, you're only my half sister. So, so it was all very much how I felt I was doing and getting what I was getting out of the deal, whatever she was trying to do. So when she was tricking me, I did not like her. So yes, definitely.
Oh, amazing.
Sorry.
Come on. So you've got like you've got fantasy, you've got sci-fi, you've got horror. What if you were to pin yourself down? What would your preference be, or do you just don't have any preference?
My preference is historical fiction.
Oh wow!
Interesting.
So, any
Sharp?
particular?
Do you like Sharp?
Region or,
well, this is I suppose my preference. What I know I'm being a bit cheeky here, but I really love writing historical fiction, but always with a speculative twist. So it's got some fantastical or horror element or fantastical element to it. So I think there's the odd story in Umbilical and also Waterloo, which is actually set in an Earth, I would say, but either 100 years ago or a couple of hundreds of years ago. So I really like historical fiction, but I like to give it some sort of magical twist or some sort of speculative twist. And so that's probably my favorite, but it takes so much research to get the historical fiction. It's an amazing genre to write in, but I'm always a bit nervous about writing in it because of the huge amount of research there is to be done. And you know that there will always be one person who will say something like snowdrops weren't introduced into Britain until
I think you'll find that the you've got the wrong sort of turret on that tank, and this is coming from the history nerd. So
on Saturday I ran a game at D&D at the castle in Alveston Castle, and this adventure I ran was inspired by local history and regional folklore. So I incorporated the Dracula vampires. I set the game in Alveston Castle itself, and incorporated one of the 4th Earl of Harrington, Charles Stanhope, who was a former very caused controversy at the time when he married a actress 20 years as the junior, and then he was very outgoing and had filled up parties. And then when his first son died at the age of 4, he became a recluse. And then just became where before the gardens were open, he just closed them all off and allegedly locked up his wife. And that's a great story. Why did he do that? I know, vampires. And why would maybe he wants to talk to his son again, because the firstborn son is a very important at that time. Okay, he wants to get in touch with us. He wants to bring his son back. Okay, right. Okay, we could work with that. And I ran that story, and I've ran it a couple of times. And the best part is I'm setting it in Alveston Castle. So basically, you have to break into this manor house. But yeah, there's so much history out there, and especially when you dig down, I'm thinking, just add a little kind of fantastical element to it, and it breaks into so much more different. And I mean, like, those, when you're kind of writing historical, I suppose, fantasy, at what point do you kind of start bringing in the kind of mystical elements?
Yes, again, it's everything kind of seems to happen in parallel. Like one of my stories is called "The Sun Is God," and it's about this painter. Her name is Eugenie, and in it she actually mixes together, when she's mixing her oil paints up, because this was a time in the 19th century when you literally had to make up the oil paints yourselves. And she's doing all of this, but she can speak to the oil paints and they ask her for something. So they ask her for body parts like maybe hair or tears or fingernails, and it gives her this ability to paint pictures that are so realistic. They're almost like you can step into them, so people, when they see them, they get a sense that they are there. And so that was the magical element of it, and I felt what that meant was I could show something about the connection between an artist and their art, and how they get into flow when they're creating something, which I think is a wonderful state, and I suppose it's a psychological state as well. So I wanted to show something like that, and the magical came from the fact that she was literally adding of her own body and from her own memories. She was speaking to the paint as she's making it, and then she's creating the art and going into a flow state. So that was the magical element of it. But of course, historical was setting it in the right time and trying to get everything right. And then I weaved in William Turner into it because I'm a massive fan of Turner's art. And so I had to do that research to make sure that I was introducing him sympathetically and correctly, and trying to not make light of his work, but also just maybe emphasize how influential he was on other artists, but also how all artists, once they get into this state of flow, they kind of have a same sense of the wonder of creation, of the very paint that they're making, how they are in essence working with light. And Turner's last words apparently on his deathbed were, "The sun is God." And so you could read that in various ways. So this was apparently what he said on his deathbed. So I just thought that was so fascinating. And I'd had a kind of experience when looking at the sun, which was quite a spiritual experience. It's quite almost like I felt in touch with God. And so when I learned that was apparently William Turner's last words, it felt amazingly moving to me, and thinking, is this what artists are doing? Is this what writers are doing? Where we're building on one another's works, being inspired by them, being influenced, but what we're making is uniquely ours as well. It's such a strange experience, and it is almost for some people like a spiritual experience. So again, it felt important for me to weave in that magic, but to get everything correct. So I think I managed it with that story.
Very good.
You're describing like the spiritual elements of creation, especially like taking parts of yourself and putting it in. Reminds me a lot of Robin Hobb's books. I don't know if you've read them, The Realm of the Elderlings. It's where she describes like the creation of the stone dragons, where it's carved using like the skill, this kind of magical element, of basically where you kind of take memories from yourself and imbue it into the dragon you're creating.
See, yeah.
So it kind of really kind of echoes that. And is that how you approach writing? Kind of coming from an almost, as you said, the flow is where you're in that moment and you're flowing from yourself into your work.
Yes, it's important to me. Yeah, I'm always fascinated by art and how it influences other people, and that sense of flow. I very much try to enter a state of flow, I suppose, when I'm writing myself, but that is important to me, and sometimes I write about it in stories, and other times I just try and achieve that state of flow. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, the possible question is like, do you have a routine for getting into that state of flow? Do you have like a set of processes for enabling it?
coffee.
Coffee solves everything, apparently.
Yes, I find it is. I mean, some people, every writer's different, aren't they? Some people want to have quiet, complete quiet when they work. Some people like listening to music. Some people have a favourite desk at which they work. Some people prefer to write in the morning. Some people prefer to write in the evening. I just find that I've just been working in such a way it's so piecemeal for so many years. I think maybe writers who have kids or are writing around jobs, yeah, exactly. You get quite good at thinking, I have 20 minutes now. I have to, within 20 minutes, I could do something. I could write 100 words or at least make some notes about what the next chapter I should write. And so I think you can maybe train yourself to get into flow quicker, because if you have 20 minutes, you have to work effectively in those 20 minutes, don't you?
Yeah.
And yet, sometimes I would probably say, if I actually had the luxury or the chance to work for 4 hours straight, I would probably do a huge amount of faffing around, because I'm not used to that. Yeah. Whereas maybe other writers would say, right, 4 hours, now we go for it. So yeah, I think that's really interesting how different people work. So I find I can get into flow quite quickly if necessary, but definitely if I have a cup of coffee with me and I know I'm going to have a bit of peace and quiet for an hour, then I can get into it. And by the end of the hour, I want to keep going. I don't want to do whatever else I have to do, but still I do need to do things, freelance editing jobs or the laundry or picking up my children or something. So
I found, like, especially when I was still working as an engineer, I had a 40-minute train journey and there and back. And I would basically, as soon as I got on the train, I'd sit down, open laptop, and just start flow, because it was 8 o'clock, bing, go. 8:40, get off the train. And that was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because I was working part-time. And yeah, I got in that habit of basically sit down, open up, power on, go.
yeah.
Now it's much more kind of, right, okay, right, I've got some free time, let's do it now. And also one thing I found, well, when my daughter was doing competitive swimming and doing training like twice a week, take my laptop with me, right, okay, see you now, I'm going to sit here and just write. So basically you do learn to kind of, especially when I got over commitments, you learn to, right, I've got a good hour, right, go.
Yes, definitely. And the funny thing is, I actually, in my poetry collection, which is called Russian Doll, I have a poem about sitting at the swimming pool watching my daughter learn to swim, and which can be sometimes a bit of a tough situation for the parent. And then there was in Waterloo, I do have a story called Ghost Fish, which is set in a swimming pool, and I really put the poor mum under a lot of stress with her taking her kids to the swimming lessons and all the dynamics of the parents watching their kids. And yes, I thought that took again that everyday experience and twisted it again into something that was a little bit strange.
Yeah, there's been like I say, there's a lot of writers out. There's only a few writers out there that do seem to do kind of mythic and the mundane, or at least do it well. I find your work definitely kind of like just nails that kind of mundane element and weaves in the mystical to make it almost seems almost commonplace, but just put lying underneath.
Yeah, I do like to do that, and sometimes it's quite a straightforward question that I ask myself, like if any listeners have younger children, they'll surely know of Horrid Henry and Dirty Bertie, and all these stories have always got a shark in the swimming pool, right? Their kids are always terrified of the shark in the swimming pool, and of course as adults we can laugh at that and go, yes, this can't possibly be a shark in the swimming pool. But I actually do go swimming once a week, and there was one time when I was swimming, and something did catch my eye, which really frightened me and drew my attention to it. And I think it was literally just I think the black painted line or something like that on the swimming pool. But it was something that was in the corner of my eye, and immediately I thought shark. And I thought, my mind knows there is no shark, and yet it's still that primal fear of something unknown in the water. And so I just thought to myself, these kids have been reading these stories about sharks in the swimming pool, which can't possibly happen. And yet what happens if there is something called a ghost fish? And if you see it, then the next thing you're going to see is a dead body. So I thought, let's just ask that question. What happens?
Wow. So I remember as a kid, they used to like have a wave machine that's like Schenkel swimming pool like in Belfast, and they had a wave machine, and it had this grill obviously where the waves like are made. But again, my sister or something told me that's where all the sharks are. That's where they get the shit. And I remember sort of swimming up to it and just sort of like feeling really, really panicked that there was going to be sharks coming out of this grill thing. Not waves, but sharks just coming out to get me. And the point, I have a thing, I love swimming. And I've done scuba diving, so I've got my open water, and I've got my scuba diver, and my brother's got his adventure diver, and I love that. But I have this real sort of fear of not seeing the bottom. I really cannot, I love swimming, but if I jump in and I can't see the bottom, then it freaks me out, no end, to the point of refusing to sort of be in the water when that's happening. And I remember once we were really lucky, and we went on the holiday, and we were in the Maldives, and we were taken out to swim with giant mantas, and these things are absolutely huge. If I was to put my hands out, you know, their wingspan, if you call it their wingspan, would sort of they could, and some of them could swallow you. In theory, they're that big, huge, and so they do is they sort of kind of go, right, so I'm going to drop you off here, and they're going to come towards you because that's the direction they're coming. So they'll go right, jump in, and I just sort of remember looking down at this sort of darkness and just kind of going, I don't know if I want to do this and stuff. And my brother jumped in. The only reason I went in is because my brother jumped in, and I felt like I've got to go in now. But I remember going in,
sibling rivalry,
and it was just darkness, and then all I saw was and I knew it was manta rays, but I saw shadows just coming underneath me and stuff, and I was freaking out. I was just I was petrified, and it was only when they sort of actually came at you and over you and stuff like that, you sort of went, oh my god, this is amazing. But it was just these shadows of these things that could just come up, and I just, it just makes me feel really weird, and I just don't want to be anywhere near where I've got this thing of if I were to look down in the darkness, I would just see this mouth coming up and going thump.
And that's a whole story in and of itself. That's a new story right there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm impressed.
But I mean, I've looked into this in the past. We as humans have evolved a process called pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Where we kind of where we only see about literally we can focus about the size of a large stamp in front of us. Everything else is periphery. And kind of rely on pattern recognition to kind of block out what's around us, so we remain aware. But when we can throw off the pattern, most notably with optical illusions, when we kind of when it starts skewing our perceptions, or you look at the folds of a curtain, and it's no longer a curtain anymore; it's a face that's smiling at you.
Derren Brown does a really good thing on that, and it's basically how people see. Why might people see things in photographs and see ghosts and stuff like that? And he does a very good sort of example. He's talking to this fella who insists that he can see ghosts, and he exercises, and he does all this other stuff. And he sort of goes and he says, I've got these photographs of ghosts in a cemetery, and he shows him, and it's the smoke and things like this, and he says, look, you can see a face. And then Derren Brown says, yeah, but you can also see stairs and a snake, and he starts doing all these other things, because your brain is hardwired to try and make sense of things that you can't make sense of. And so it's literally a case of, the reason you're scared of things is because it's better to be scared and escape nothing than to come, I wonder if that's a lion, and just wait for it to come and get you. So it's that's why we jump to conclusions, and that's why human beings are more likely to just sort of kind of accept something and run, because it's better to be safe than it is to kind of reason behind it and then kind of go, oh right, it's a lion, I'm dead, and then sort of run off. And that's why you have that pattern recognition.
And to be fair, fight or flight response.
Yep, exactly. Yeah,
everything comes down to genetics.
Yeah,
and being a caveman.
Which makes me think, it's like, I like to question everything. It's like, I would totally be dead right now. That lion would have got me ages ago.
This is where we differ, Matt, because I leg it. I leg it, then ask questions.
It's like, I'm not sure if this is a lion or not, but I'm just in the off chance I'm running away.
But you ask the question, you'll be the meal, I'll do the running. I think that's
the human brain in general is just it's crazy. It's just like, it's you can, the whole thing. I love Derren Brown. I think he's just, all the stuff he does. It's witchcraft that he can make people do and stuff. Just the whole thing with how people's brains work and how they can be manipulated and things like that. Just madness.
I went to go and see, when was it now? It must have been about 12, 13 years ago. I went to one of his shows, and I don't know, I think there was sort of like the skeptic in me was thinking, I'm going to see this, and because I'm watching it from about 7th or 8th row from the stage, I'm going to see some trick, or I'm going to see something that stands out. And the one that really got me, and it's a very simple one, but he tricks, like he gets someone to say, put your head down, go to sleep. I'm now going to give you something to drink. I'm going to just let you drink it, and you can tell me what you think it is. And basically, he's got 2 bottles on the side. It's like, one's a bottle of Coke, and then the other one was a bottle of vinegar. Mm-hmm. So, and bear in mind, he opens up this bottle of vinegar. You can smell it from the 8th row. You could smell, and gee, and he's just take up. He goes, I've got a nice cool soda here for you. I'll tell you what, just drink it all in one go. And that made me think, what the fuck is going on here? And it's like, my mate next to me, he looked like he was about to gag, and I thought, you're not even drinking. But the smell of it though, because as soon as he opened that bottle, it just stunk the auditorium out. It was horrid. But this guy's just like, yep, down it, gone. And as he's woke the guy up, he's gone. So how was that? Was that all right? Yeah. Before you go, hang on. Let me just. I've got a mint here. Trust me, you're gonna need that in a minute. And as he's like gone down, he's he's gone. Yeah, you don't know what's happened, do you? He goes, yeah. That bottle of Coke is it's still sitting up here.
It's all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, it's just sort of. I know we're kind of going off. We're going off.
No,
the reservation.
I know, but it's just. I know that's not even like one of the best ones, but that one really made me think there must be something to this, because just like the smell of vinegar, you think would be enough to like.
It relies on persuasion and deception and basically tricking the human brain into processing pattern recognition. And I mean, I suppose for you, Teika, I mean, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, have you? How do you blend that into? Do you blend that element in your books?
Well, it helps. My husband's a neuroscientist, so I know about these tricks of the brain. I've actually got a PhD in chemistry, so I can maybe talk to you about the vinegar.
Right.
Here we go. Here's the second hour of the podcast.
No, but it is fascinating that I say we call them the tricks of the brain, but again, the brain just wants to help us survive. And the way my husband describes it, there's so many layers of processes and functionings that have been put over things that have helped us to survive over the millennia. So it's the way it's all integrated is incredible. And I think people think of brains having different parts and just saying that part of the brain does that and that does that, but actually it's all interwoven together, and it's fascinating.
Wow.
How people's brains work. But they do take a lot of shortcuts, like these, like Pete was saying, like if you see something that could potentially be dangerous, you want to take that shortcut of saying this is potentially dangerous, let's start to run, rather than let's think about this.
Yeah, it might not be a lion.
Yes, exactly. So it does take shortcuts, but sometimes that means that we don't think as deeply or clearly as we can do. And I think there's a really good book called, is it it's about slow thinking, fast thinking. You see, my brain's very slow, so I can't remember these. But again, it's talking about how slow thinking and deep thinking is actually really hard to do, and yet it's the type of thing that leads people to puzzle through extremely difficult engineering problems or mathematical problems, and you need to stick with it. Whereas fast thinking is us making snap judgments and quick decisions, because that should help us with survival, but it also frees up a lot of time. And I suppose that's why maybe humans are so judgmental as well, because it's like in a social situation we have to very quickly figure out, is this a person a friend or are they a threat to us? And so it kind of helps to make snap judgments about somebody. But now that we live in a much larger society, we're not just in a small tribe anymore, it kind of also is unhelpful, because we can be very judgmental about people we know nothing about, and that's obviously quite unfair. So it's again being aware of how you're thinking. I think that can really help. So that's called metacognition, which is really weird. So yeah, it's fascinating. And I suppose it's that thing again, when you're telling a story, deciding, is this something that I want to go into? Do I want to go down, if I actually want to explore the science of something, if I want to explore, say, astronomy or physics of let's say faster than light travel, you really have to do your research. You have to know your science, and that's obviously going to go more in a science fiction direction if you're doing that story wise. But if it's fantastical and you feel that it doesn't need all that explanation, then I think most people are quite happy for it to be supernatural or fantastical. And I can't really explain how I make those decisions, but I suppose those tropes that we're talking about, stories set in space or with a new novum, with a new technology, they kind of just seem to go more in the direction of science fiction. Whereas if it's something I really don't want to explain, or I want to bring folklore into it, talk about, say, witches or the Green Man or Baba Yaga, then obviously I'm going more in the fantastical realm. So
have you you haven't got Netflix, you're probably going to say no to this, but have you watched Love, Death and Robots at all?
That's on Netflix.
Yeah.
What they did was, it's a film with Scarlett Johansson from 10 years ago called Lucy. Given your PhD in chemistry and your husband's neuroscience, it's basically like, what happens if someone uses all their brain at once. It is complete bobbins. I just wondered if especially you and your husband, approach it as a comedy.
It's an insane film, but it's so fun.
I heard that as well. I heard that, that whole, like, we only use sort of 10% of their brain. It's just like, that's bullshit. We use all of our brain.
Yeah.
Your take comment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. If Luc Besson comes up with an idea and he thinks it's going to work, he stays at the studio and you're like, yeah, we can make a film out of that.
Have you seen a film? It was also a play. It's by Andy Nyman, who was one of the League of Gentlemen. Well, he was one of the League of Gentlemen who's not in the series. He also did Derren Brown's stage shows, I think. It's called Ghost Stories, and the tagline for it was "You see what you want to see," and it's basically about him. Andy Nyman. It's amazing. I did a review for it. I was so blown away by it. It's scary, but it's scary in a real way. In that, it's
rationalist.
But it's like he's basically a skeptic. and he's interviewing like Paul Whitehouse, and it's got Martin Freeman in it as well. And he's interviewing 3 people who are basically saying that they've been party to ghosts or paranormal activity and things. And him as a skeptic is basically interviewing about this, and there's loads of stuff, and it's one of those ones that when you watch it back afterwards and you're kind of going, oh my god, that makes so much sense. And there's loads of stuff, like there's a bit, like, I'll not ruin it for you if you ever want to watch it, but the whole thing with one of the stories is they're seeing something, but it's not a ghost, it's a mop and a thing, and it's like he's seeing it, but it's not. It's like there's like scary stuff in it. Like there's some really scary stuff in it, but then it has this massive twist at the end about the whole thing, and it's just like you go back and you watch it and you go, wow, that's just insane. But it's all about the brain tricking you into thinking things, and were these things real? Was this whole thing, because I'm not ruining it because of at the end, but like because of this and this, and it's just like, if you've not watched it, if you want to, it's horror, but it's horror in a sort of unnerving, realistic way. It's like
atmosphere.
It's more like it's like, is it real or is it not? But it doesn't matter because your brain's still thinking it's real and stuff, and it's like it's that sort of thing, and it's really good.
How do you? I suppose like question was like, how do you switch off? I mean, like you got your writing, you got your editing, your children, husband. Do you ever switch off and just say, I'm going to... No. Okay.
No, honestly, it's something that I almost mentioned to my husband the other day, and I need to get round to chatting with him. We're just so busy at the moment, it seems. But I wanted to say that I feel the older I get, but I feel it more. I find it hard to relax. I feel I find it genuinely hard to just sit and do nothing, because I always feel that there's so many jobs to be done. There's so much to be written. I've got so many ideas for stories in my head, and they're all jostling for space and attention. And so I feel that even 10 minutes, like we were talking with Pete about, every free moment you have, you should be doing something. So relaxing has become something I struggle with, really. You
should do though, because I'm the same. I've always been like, and I'm ADHD as hell, but it's like I can't just sit there and do nothing. I have to be like, if I'm doing nothing, I have to be like building a model or working something out or doing something else while I'm doing the thing, because I feel like I'm being productive in that moment and not just wasting my time. But I find that every now and again, just sitting down and just watching the film or just doing that nothing isn't the worst thing in the world. Like, it does help you sort of feel like, as much as you're kind of going, oh, I've got all these things to do, but just having that moment every now and again just to kind of go, you know what, I'm just going to watch the extended edition of Lord of the Rings and just chill out and not do anything else. And yeah, it's good. I think it's good for the mental health.
It is definitely. My family are great. We have Friday nights and Saturday nights are movie nights. You see, this is maybe again why we're the big fans of the DVDs, and we take it in turns we kind of give a choice to one another. We have 3 movies which we will go into, be very democratic about it and choose and vote for the film that we want. So sometimes we see quite a lot of my son he still likes animated stuff, and I like animated films as well. So we sometimes go for that. They sometimes go through a phase of wanting to watch Marvel. Sometimes I go through a phase of wanting to watch romantic comedies, and my husband likes the kind of old school stuff. We went through nearly all of the Rocky series recently, which I hadn't watched, which was really interesting for me, because in my head I just thought, oh, I don't really like boxing, so I won't like this. And yet I was watching it and I was like, yes. So again, it's that judgment. Oh, I don't, sort of pigeonholing it and saying, I'm not that interested in boxing, therefore I won't like this. But of course, it's all about, it's about that one person's struggle, isn't it, to become the best version of themselves. So it was really interesting to me. So so Friday nights and Saturday nights we do sit down and we watch a movie, and I think this is relaxing, and I think I like this. I want to do more of that. But then the rest of the night, the rest of the weekday nights, there's clubs to go to, and there's dinner to cook, and there's, I don't know, the to-do list just gets overwhelming. And I think this is what we're talking about, smartphones and just this digital age that we're living in. There is so much information coming at us all the time, and there's so many sparkly new interesting projects. You just go on Twitter or Facebook and you see writing friends or art that I get inspired by, and I think, oh, that's interesting. And then like calls for submissions or conventions to go to or suggestions for books to read and things to do. And I'm overwhelmed by it all. And I think this is so much amazing stuff, and yet I can't process it all. And so I think maybe we have some kind of background sense of that there's just so much and we can't process it. And that almost kind of makes me feel jittery. And I think you literally have to stop, and you have to say, no, I have to stop now with social media, or I have to stop with all this scrolling because it's actually not good. But
doom scrolling.
Yeah, one thing I do is I switch off the notifications on my phone. They don't beep. At this point, my phone makes no sound when it gets a notification, and I limit the notifications to get between 11 o'clock at night and 7 in the morning. Nothing. Don't get notified unless it's a phone call. And then during the day, I don't want any sound to it unless it's a phone call. I look at my phone when I want to look at my phone, not when my phone tells me to look at it.
I think that's very wise, definitely.
I'm glued to my phone on social media on all things at all times. I'm really bad for it. It's just I spend most of my life.
We have the technology work for us. We do not work for the technology. So, like I said, that's why I just switch notifications off and say, right, I've got some notifications. I will look at it when I want to. I don't feel compelled to. I must reply straight away. If I'm having a chat with someone, then I'll keep the screen up. Like I was chatting with you earlier today, Teika. I thought, right, I'll just keep it up here. Write a message, got a message back, reply to that quickly. But that's because we are essentially having a conversation, as we are now, but via text messenger rather than Skype.
I've got so many groups though. So it's like I feel like my life.
Yeah, Matt, but you don't need to reply to them all. They do not need your moment is where you need to be, not the virtual groups.
I know, but the thing is, I've got because it's all because you've obviously got our so you've got our this is like I've got how many groups I got. So I got our D&D stream group, which I feel like I have to be party to because I don't want them going off, too red around me not knowing about it.
That's fair enough. Yeah, manage your time and your moment. Your moment where you are now. If we're talking, you do not need to be focusing on that group. The group is still going to be there. The questions will still be there, whether it's like half an hour. But what's half an hour?
I know, but again, it's the ADHD thing, so you just kind of must sort of. It's why you interrupt people and stuff because you're feeling like I need to sort of I catch myself on I'll catch myself Teika will be saying something like I need to say a thing about that thing that she said, and I sort of and then it's just like you need to sort of get it out because you feel like if you don't say it straight away, then you're gonna forget it.
That's a conversation that you're having in the moment, which is fine. I know you're basically the conversation moves and evolves as we talk, but that's different to something that's happening in the virtual sphere.
I don't know, because you're sort of obviously if I'm not party to a conversation, but if I'm midway through a conversation and then something distracts me and I feel like I need to carry on, especially if I'm really zoned into that conversation that I need to carry on and it really distracts me and stuff, and it's sort of the point where it'll knock me out of everything else because all I'm thinking about is the replies to those conversations. But yeah, I'm not saying it is a bad thing having too much sort of screen time and things like that, and that's why I said you're just having some downtime, and that's why I like painting models and things because it's like I'm away from all technology. I'm just sort of with a paintbrush and painting a model.
It's a bit like tabletop board games. I know it's freeing up from that digital element and just doing something that's tactile. I mean, also, you mentioned anime.
Animated, not anime.
Say animated films.
Yeah.
More animated films
Oh,
than anime.
yeah.
I mean, we do watch some, but we just don't actually have very many.
Yeah.
I think.
My wife
Because
loves it.
kids have watched more than me, I think. But yeah, just the animated films. So I was just trying to think. I really like Moana.
Oh, I was going to say
Right,
Moana.
that's a good
That's
one.
all I've got in my head is my music.
You're
right? So
welcome.
all it is Disney songs and K-pop, Blackpink and Disney songs. That's all I've
Welcome
got.
to my
So,
life, Matt.
yeah, Moana, Encanto, Frozen, and that's all I'm getting all the time. Matt, can we put Moana on? Matt,
This is rebellion, Matt. This is quite a simple point. Your daughter is rebelling. I'm into goth metal. Kaylee is into glam punk. Our daughter is into K-pop.
I don't, you know what? I kind of like Blackpink. The problem is, it's not because I don't. It's not the song. It's just because they want to listen to it all the time, every 5 seconds, song over and over and over again. Can we put this on? No, because I listened to it about 1 million times. I dream K-pop now. That's all I'm getting is sort of Blackpink. I was like Blackpink in your area, and it's just like I kind of like those songs, but it's just like it's so all the time, and it's just sort of. Oh, it's constant all the time. All I get as soon as I get in the car, can we put some Blackpink on? No, you had it, but I haven't heard it in years.
Matt, you're going about the wrong way. You don't say no. When Ada was going through a phase of being into One Direction, we're talking about 10 years ago. She asked if we could play her One Direction CD in the car. I said, I wish we could, but the CD player is incompatible. And she believed me.
Yeah.
And kept giving me, and we never asked since. A year ago, Ada asked me, "Oh, I've got some One Direction. Can I play it?" I said, "No, it's incompatible." She went, "Oh, okay." She's 15. She was 15 then, 16 now. And she went, "Hang on."
Yeah, that's the one good thing about this, because Misa's only like 6, so she's completely gullible in a lot of ways. So it's like you can tell her stuff, and
try
she's like,
the incompatibility route. It works for me.
Like I do it a lot with the timings because she always wants to stay up late and stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to lie to her, but then I'm just like, you need bed. So she'll go, oh, and it's like, oh, you've been well past your bed. I always go, it's well past your bedtime now. Whew, it's really late and stuff, making her think it's all. And she's like, oh, it's like, oh, it's well past your bed. It's nearly 10 o'clock. And so like 8 o'clock. And I'm like, it's like 10 o'clock. Oh, you need to go to bed.
Yeah. And I mean, what have you got coming up anyway, Teika?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
And I don't know. I was asked that a couple of times at FantasyCon. I just think it's so lovely, and it just makes me happy that people are just asking me if they're potentially interested in what I'm doing. But I just have lots of things that are 3/4 finished, so I feel like I can't say, oh, I have this lovely finished project.
Yeah.
I have a novel that's 3/4 finished. I have a short story collection that's 3/4 finished. I have a poetry pamphlet that is 3/4 finished. So I feel
the folder of shame.
Yeah.
What gets me is Agent Tchaikovsky. He is so bloody prolific and productive. And I think we had him on the podcast before. He said this is a bit of a problem because if he goes for 2 weeks without writing, he starts getting a bit twitchy. But I think at one point he approached his original publishers, having written the first 3 books, of which became the Shadow of the App trilogy, and it's like that's literally going to your publisher and saying, "Hi, I've got a trilogy. Would you like to publish it?" And that's
incredible. Yeah, I worked with Adrian on the Utopia of Us, so he's got a short story in here.
Excellent.
And he just sent me this, in essence, word perfect story that just came through when I said to him, I gave him a little bit of a nudge. I said, Adrian, how about that story that I was looking forward to reading for this anthology? And he was like, well, you'll have to remind me again. But yes, it might be doable. And he just said, and then I think it was a very short period of time later, he just sent me the story, and it was just perfect. It is a fantastic story. So I mean, the whole anthology is brilliant, but if you are into Adrian Tchaikovsky,
Oh yeah.
you have to get that. Because
Yeah, I'm currently reading A City of Ruin at the moment by Adrian, and it is really good story.
Yeah, I mean, it's very bonkers. It's very Adrian, but it is it's absolutely brilliant. So yes, and funnily enough, I was actually watching your podcast with Adrian. You've had him on quite a few times.
Yes, we have.
Three times?
Yes.
Twice, 3 times, yeah.
That was really
And
fascinating.
you still want to come on the podcast after watching it?
I thought it was really interesting, and like you said, the way he was talking about his productivity and his creativity, it's fascinating. It's really inspiring. I thought it was a really lovely conversation.
Yeah, there's been some really good, like, we've had a lot of writers on, and we always ask them sort of like, are you pantsers, or what was the other one, Pete?
Planner, or
pantser. And
do you plan your books, or do you write by the seat of your pants?
Yeah, that's always quite interesting about how people sort of their creative process, how different people do different things.
So, I mean, how do you approach it, Teika? Are you a pantser or a planner?
I think I'm more like Adrian. So, and by the way, I don't know if this is getting quite meta, but that's you guys on my computer.
I just want to wave at myself for once.
That's a fourth wall break if we ever needed one.
Yeah.
So I think I accidentally hit it, and actually I think Pete's voice started coming out, and I thought, oh no, I'm like interrupting my own Geek Pride cast
with Geek Pride cast.
So yeah, that was a bit. Yeah, it's lovely. I've got you guys right there. So I think I'm a bit like Adrian in that I've got quite a good sense of where the story's going. So I feel in my head it's all there, and then I start writing it, and it can diverge definitely, but in essence I've got the arc in my head. So I suppose that's the outlining.
Yeah, I suppose you know where you're starting, you know where you want to go. It's how you get there. That's how you make it. That's the pants bit.
Yeah. I've got certain beats that I know I want to hit. Yeah. I've got certain scenes that I know I want to write, and it does change. But in essence, I know that I've got to get from A to Z, and I pretty much know the route there. So things can change a bit, but I still need to get to that end point. So I think that does help. But I think it was Christopher Priest again, who was somebody who I was friends with, and obviously, sadly, he died recently. And he passed on again this amazing advice of really think clearly about what you're writing before you start to write. So have a good, clear sense of even the scene that you're trying to write. Picture it, understand what your characters' motivations are, what they're going to be saying to one another, and have it in your mind before you write. Otherwise it gets messy and you start editing yourself and it goes off on a tangent and you're not keeping it reined in. And I thought that was really helpful in terms of writing something out that should come out pretty good first time, which is what Adrian was saying, that his drafts come out really clean. And I suppose if you have a clear picture of where you want to go and what you want to write, I suppose you're more likely to get it correct the first time.
Yeah, so like what I'm doing all right is like you're almost like you study them up beforehand before you set off on a journey, so you know the basic route. Like A38, M1, M62. You know the route, you know the basic route, but you don't use the sat nav. You just basically got the core idea of what you want to do, and then just basically make it up as you go along to kind of take into account of the metaphorical roadblocks or detours that you need to do.
Yes, and that's how you end up getting stuck in Milton Keynes. Which is
yeah,
I did that exactly when I took my daughter to Oxford University Open Day recently. I did what Pete said, which was I had a rough plan of where I needed to go, and I didn't have I actually still have a TomTom again. This is like
Wow.
old school.
Oh, this is old
I
school
like
tech.
the TomTom. It tells me where to go, so I don't need to expend brain power, and I can just concentrate on the road. So again, I had a vague idea of where I needed to go until we went past the exit that we needed, and then my daughter said, "I think that was the one you said you wanted." And I was like, "Oh dear, yes." And then we were scrabbling to get the TomTom out. Quick, get it out. It's going to tell us how we're going to get back. And then we ended up going through Milton Keynes. But again, that was interesting because I said, "This is the city of roundabouts, Rebecca." And so we started going, and we were counting how many roundabouts we were going. And she's like, "Oh, this is really cool. We're up to 15 now."
God. I remember having like this would have been before, this would be 2001 possibly. I was going to Reading Festival.
Oh, only a few years ago then.
Yeah, only a few years ago, 23 years ago. But going to Reading Festival, and we were staying at a friend's house, and she's like, "Let's go to club night in London. We can just drive down the road. You can drive down, and my dad will give us some directions, and we'll go into London, do the thing, and come back." And I was like, "Yeah, cool. All right, we'll do that." He gave us these very sort of precise directions on how to get where we were going. And yeah, we got there brilliantly. The directions worked. Bar the fact that there's just always traffic in London. It's just constant traffic. But got
you
down
do
there.
not drive in London.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, and I just don't know how people do things like sat nav these days. But I remember coming out, and London just throws up roadworks everywhere, and there was roadworks on the roads where I needed to go, and I had no other directions other than the ones we had just got to get there, and I was meant to be going the back way, and it took us 7 hours to get out of London. It was like we had a really good night, and then like 7 hours later, finally, after asking about 1 million people for directions to get back to Reading, I was just like, this was the worst night ever, because the roads we were going was blocked, and I had no idea where I was going. Just got stuck in London.
Not drive in London ever. It is not designed for cars. It's not designed for people either, to be fair. But
Oh man, yeah. Right, okay. But as this has been going on for a little bit, I guess we should get to Jon Jo's News Hour, or Jon Jo's News 10 minutes.
No, we're not doing an hour. Jesus Christ, come on.
Jon Jo's News
Some
10
of us
minutes.
want to sleep tonight.
So Jon Jo.
Oh yes, we did say about doing the theme.
Yeah,
we haven't got the theme still.
I need to
you
get
had it. You've had. There's your theme.
That's the theme. I mean, I like it. You know, I'm not knocking it.
You are.
Yep. Okay, so Jon Jo,
Anyway, go on.
hit us with some news before we go.
Right, so I'm sure Pete's already probably knows about this, but some interesting news about Alien Romulus.
Physical DVD release, physical VHS release. Sorry.
See, I knew you'd do that already. Yes, a physical VHS release. I mean, come on, that's
old
quite
school.
fun.
That's old school. That's something that Teika would probably go for. VHS. You've got a VHS player still, Teika?
It stopped working.
Oh no!
What am I going to do?
Well, you can't buy a brand new
that's a sign of
Romulus, then.
That's a sign of actually my VHS player has actually died on me, and I can't watch tapes anymore. I remember Betamax. We had a Betamax player back when I was a kid. That's old.
I remember when when I was younger, when we used to get the ferry over to Ireland from Pembrokeshire, and every time we went there in the arcade, they had a Laserdisc player, and oh my god, it was just filled up with music videos. But I used to just love playing about with that. It was good fun. My god, how technology's changed. So let's go on to some comic book-ish news. Probably my favourite Netflix series, which is no longer on Netflix, but is on Disney Plus. Daredevil is returning
5th of March, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, 4th/5th. I guess it depends on where you are in the world, where you get. But yeah, so early March 2025. Daredevil Born Again is coming up, and it's just shy of 10 years from when it first began on Netflix, so it's good. 9-episode series, I can't wait for this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We hope.
I hope, yeah. Well, considering they pretty much scrapped it and restarted from the beginning, because Marvel trying to
long as they
run down.
as long as they keep the fight, because the fight scenes were what really made it just superb. So I just hope, like, I rewatched the Raid recently. That's obviously they get a lot of influence from the Raid, and as long as they go along that line, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they will. Also, as well, just announced probably my second favorite comic book of all time. Batman Hush is getting an official sequel that is being written by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee.
Worst.
Oh, that was
ever.
That was bad. That was bad. Anyway, so
I've broken Jon Jo.
Oh, I'm broke. Anyway, that's gone. Okay, so anyway, yeah. So the book's currently being written. It's apparently early stages, but coming out 2025. And the thing is, I really enjoyed the original comic run of Hush, and I like this idea of a character who is trying to not just so much impersonate or try and take down Batman, but someone that's actually trying to take down Bruce Wayne. It's a very, very good story. It's very grounded. It's very different compared to a lot of the Batman stuff. So it's not overly focused on, on like your normal classic villains. It brought in someone that was brand new, and it really stuck out. So I'm hoping, that'll be a good book.
Just before you move on from obviously on the Batman thing,
I've just found my notebook now. I've got to try and remember it by memory now.
Yeah, okay, I'll just give you time. Have you watched the Joker 2?
No, I haven't got around to Joker 2 yet. The reason I haven't is because I've gone weird now when it comes to cinema, because I used to be happy going to the cinema by myself. I now feel if I go and see a film in cinema, I have to go with someone else, because I always have to have that almost like that decompression afterwards. You got to sort of the last film I saw by myself in the cinema was about 4 or 5 days before the first lockdown, and that was the first Sonic the Hedgehog film. And I remember sitting in this 200-seat cinema all by myself. It was lovely. It was so good. But at the same time, obviously, I was thinking, maybe I shouldn't be going out because there's this deadly virus that's going around the world. Anyway, hey, that is Sonic here.
But yeah, Joker 2, it's got a lot of mixed reviews. I came out of it sort of kind of umming and ahhing, but I've come down to it that I enjoyed it. I think it's just sort of, it's very, there's an angle that they use in it, a very specific angle, which I think is really good. You just have to sort of zone yourself into that area, but it's just like the whole thing, because there's singing in it. There's a lot of singing in it. They're obviously Lady Gaga's in it, so there's a lot of singing. But the singing sort of, it's weird because they'll have this really tense moment, and then there'll be some crazy singing going on, and then going back to the sort of tense moment.
Yeah, they got Lady Gaga, so they made it into a musical.
But no, but it's not even that. The music sort of gives the craziness edge, because it's like you have this really mental stuff going on, and then suddenly it's like a musical, like a proper musical, and then it goes straight back into this sort of kind of tense moment, and you're just like, and I think it gives it absurdity,
a disconnect.
Yeah, it makes it really weird. Like, and I think people sort of didn't like that, because it is there's a musical, but I think it makes the fact that they're fucking crazy more real, because they are, that sort of stuff. There's a twist at the end, obviously, which sort of is upsetting people, but I think it works.
There's always a twist at the end.
So I think it works. But anyway, carry on, Joe.
Just a couple more things. So this week, because go from one comic book film to another, Venom: The Last Dance is out on Friday, and I am seeing that on opening night. I'm quite looking forward to it, and I reckon this is why, because I obviously keep up on a lot of the Marvel stuff. I reckon this is why we've not heard anything about the new Spider-Man movie, because I honestly believe that there's going to be stuff from Venom 3 that's going to cross over, because Sony like to do that. Sony don't like to play well with Marvel. They like to drip feed here and there and then take things back when they think they can do it themselves, you know. I mean, because Madam Web and Morbius was so good.
Well, they've got what isn't Kraven the Hunter a
Kraven the Hunter's out in December? Yeah, that's
a Sony one.
Yeah,
I think they're trying to make it a bit more R-rated. I think they've kind of, yeah. I'm not a massive fan of the Venom films. I don't dislike them. I just not really.
The reason I enjoy them is because I think, considering that they basically done a Spider-Man without a Spider-Man universe, I really enjoyed it because I really thought it was going to be this like dark and brooding film when the first one came out. I really thought it was just going to be like overly serious, and because it's pretty much just Tom Hardy talking to himself for 2 hours and he's having fun with it, you know, the Venom symbiote is basically beating him up, making him do things he doesn't want to do, and then they sort of have to come together because, you know, they've got the common enemy. And I thought that was a lot of fun. And even Venom 2, Venom Let There Be Carnage, I thought was a lot of fun again. But then a lot of that does come to Woody Harrelson playing Carnage, who just, I mean, miscast as hell, but my God, he had a lot of fun with that part. But no, Venom: The Last Dance, I'm looking forward to a lot. I think they're purposely, like, I think Sony has sort of learned a little bit now. They're not giving away too much of the story. They're teasing bits, so you know there's other symbiotes. We know that there is Null, the god of the symbiotes, who's going to be probably going to be left to a post-credit scene. He's going to most likely be the villain for the next Spider-Man film, but
apparently they didn't ask for permission to use him.
No, there's been a few stories like this, and who was it before? There was another one. I think it might have even been Gore the God Butcher from For Love and Thunder. I think there was a bit of a to do about that because there was not permissions done, but Sony and Marvel got plenty of money. They could just throw that out and go, here you go, here's a $500,000 or $1 million. No, keep go off back. And yeah. And finally, because I do watch some new films, and again, it is another comic book one. I got round to watching the new Hellboy film, The Crooked Man.
Ooh,
oh yeah, is that by Neil Marshall?
I think it was Neil Marshall. I can't remember that. Oh, do you know? It's gone out of my head.
Jon Jo, your encyclopedic mind has let you down. You're the guy I go to who knows names and people and things.
Well, let's put it this way. I was watching it, and it was hard for me to try and keep it in my head because I was watching it. I was like, there was parts of it I was really enjoying. There's parts of it that was just making my mind dribble. Brian Taylor is the is the director who. Yes, that's it. He was the director of Crank and Crank High Voltage.
Okay, yeah, those bastions of those classics.
Yeah. And and one of the co-directors of Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. That was it.
Okay.
Oh dear.
As I said, some of the film works quite well. The CGI is really bad. The budget on this film is very low key, but very different to a lot of the works. Actually co-written by Mike Mignola, who is the creator of Hellboy.
Okay.
And the Jack Kesey, who plays Hellboy in this, actually really like his portrayal. He's very good in the part. He underplays it quite a bit as well, so he's not being flashy. He's not trying to go for quips all the time. He's not trying to, steal up the screen. And even really, he doesn't appear that much in the film. Considering he's the title character, there is quite a few scenes where he's in the background or just doesn't make himself known. But one person who does stand out in it quite a lot is Joseph Marcel, who is, for any fans of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, is Jeffrey the butler.
Really?
Oh, that's the one thing I remember the most about this film. I'm
trying to think. So, this is another one. So you got another Hellboy before, because you had the other one that was with what's his name? He plays Harp in
Yeah. So
Stranger
you had
Things.
you had the one in 2019.
That's it.
Yeah, that
which was
would have been
Jim
fun.
Hopper himself.
Yeah.
I did not like that one at all. I thought it was really bad. But I don't know. Like I say, I think there were some good ideas. I didn't hate it, but there was times I was bored. But there was times that I enjoyed the creativity, and it does lean to a bit more of a gothic feel to it as well. But all I'd say is, if you want to go and watch it, because it's already at cinemas, it was only in cinemas for about a week. Even in America, it didn't even get a theatrical release. They just went, we're putting it on streaming. You can buy it online from 2 weeks' time. I mean, it was fine, but I think I hate to say it, comic book fatigue, I think, has really set in now. There are a few exceptional circumstances. Deadpool and Wolverine, still possibly one of my favorite films this year.
Yep.
God, actually, comic book wise, I think that's really it there. Everything else has been pretty bad, really.
Well, yeah, you've got the obviously James Gunn's just released that picture of Superman and
Cosmo
and stuff. I'm just a bit off about
Crypto.
Yeah, crypto.
Yeah.
I'm still, because I like Henry Cavill as Superman. I thought Henry Cavill did a really good Superman, and it still upsets me that he's not Superman anymore. But it's like, we'll see what happens with this one. And
Henry Cavill has got to become the new Wolverine. That would be cool.
I don't know if they'd make him Wolverine. I like the fact that they had that cameo of him as Wolverine. I just like the fact that they had so many cameos, but I like the fact that they gave the nod that he's just being pissed around so much. But we'll see. There's a lot. I think you could go down the Captain Britain angle maybe, or
I think after they've done these next Avengers films, it's going to be a very X-Men centric path, because that's obviously, I think that's been their goal. Once they've done the toy box as they've got at the moment, they've got all these new characters, all these new pieces that they can throw in. So they're going to probably clear a lot of, probably 80% of the actors that are currently under Marvel's contract. They'll keep some, because there'll be some crossovers. There'll still be some stories they'll continue, like Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, things like that will carry on. But yeah, I mean, we'll probably have a lot of X-Men expanded items from, what was it, 2027 is when Avengers Secret Wars is due to come out. So that is probably going to be more or less the end of Marvel as we know it. So that's it's almost like a 20-year journey.
When does 27? So when does Doomsday come out?
That's May 2026.
Ooh, so that's close. Right,
yeah.
Okay.
And I still like this. Obviously, it's not been confirmed. I still like this theory though, that every film that's going to be between Doomsday and Secret Wars is going to be all set within Battle World. So if they can pull that off, that'll be good. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, interesting. We'll see. Okay, nice one. Thanks for that, Jon Jo, for your new section. We're enjoying it. Very good. Very good. Okay. We don't have time to add in the pop quiz, do we?
Sorry, no.
We haven't done it for so long, Pete. I feel like we haven't done our little quiz thing at the end. All right, fine. Okay, fine. Right. Okay. Teika, have you got anything? Well, you haven't got anything coming up that you can talk about. Is there anywhere that people should go to find your books? Find anything about yourself? Anything you want to pimp out at this moment in time?
Yes, well, I think Ian Waits of Newcom Press is currently selling this at a reduced price to celebrate the Newcomer Award. So that's if you go to the Newcom Press website and look for Umbilical there, the paperback and hardback has been reduced. And it's only a couple of quid on Kindle anyway, so you could always get it there. And I do have Waterloo here. This is always a very reasonable price as well, from Black Shuck Books. I think the ebook's only something like £1.49 as well. So
Yeah,
that's really
it's on there. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can
Do
see
you know
it.
what? Funny enough, I was just about to say, when you were mentioning the books, I thought, oh, I like doing that. I like having a little look on like that, and it came up. I was like, it's quite
Reasonably priced.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
priced, yeah.
Some reasonably priced short stories for you, ladies and gents.
Yes, and
And-
I still want to give a shout out to the Utopia of Us, which you can get from Luna Press Publishing or Amazon again. And it does contain, I'll read out all the authors because they're all fantastic. Contains stories by Anne Charnock, Raina Premium, Artie Esther, Liam Hogan, Tim Major, Nadia Mersick, Fiona Mossman, Anna Orridge, Sophia Samatar, Anna Sun, Adrian Tchaikovsky, Michael Teasdale, Douglas Thompson, Ian Waits, and Alia Whiteley.
Oh, that is a fantastic.
That's a list of
Yeah.
that's a podcast list right there, Pete. We've only had one of those guys.
Right,
anymore.
I'll think this is the
Next year,
podcast
if
and
we
just
can
kind
do
of get
that.
all his name down and get them
Okay, there you go. You got a list already. We'll tick that one off. We'll move on. But
So
it's
they're
been,
fantastic, yeah.
well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really interesting conversation. Best of luck with your endeavors going forward. Hopefully, you finish off the projects you've got going. By all means, when you do, let us know. We can have another chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the three of you have got so much wonderful wisdom between you. I've just been listening and just been
Wisdom on us
Wisdom.
three. Here, there you go.
It's we have something.
I just love the
Insanity.
fact. I just love the fact that we were sitting there mansplaining sort of like all this sort of cognitive stuff, and then and it's just like Teika's just like, yeah, my husband a
I think-
neuroscientist, and we're like,
And I've got
"Ah, right,
PhD in chemistry, like, yeah,
okay. And
I
I'm
think when it's time like that, I think I have to resort from when I think I'm knowledgeable to go back to my party days when obviously I was young and I didn't care about what I was doing. So this is the pair of glasses I nicked off a friend of mine. They used to light up. They obviously don't now because they're 12 years old and they're rubbish.
I still have my blue ones from our stag. I say our stag do. Jon Jo, my stag.
I was going to say,
Congratulations.
I don't remember getting married. That'd be a
stag do. You don't
is it like that? Is it like the episode of The Simpsons? Did we get really drunk and we just got married to two random women?
Right. Okay. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be chatting with you. So I will definitely look for you for the podcast on the socials. But
Yeah. I'll send you a link when it's available online.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So it'll be on Spotify and iTunes. Usually we leave it a week, and then on the Sunday I upload it for Spotify and all the other online apps and stuff like that. But thank you very much for tonight. I've been Matt Geary. With me has been Peter Ray Allison.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Goodbye, everyone.
Oh,
It's fine. This is why we don't have the pop quiz at the moment, because I'm getting tired.
Old man Allison needs to take his Betty
Yes.
nap.
I'm 50 next year. That's terrifying.
Really? Are you the 5-0, the big 5-0?
And so,
There you go. Jon Jo Cosgrove.
Take care, everyone.
And we have. 1 minute, I'm going to cough.
the drum roll. That's the drum roll.
Sorry. It was one of those. It caught in the back of my throat. I was like, I'm going to go. We got Teika Marija Smits.
Good night, everyone.
Night, everybody. Bye bye.